The golf world just stopped. Again. Collin Morikawa, the two-time major champion, the player who spent years calling LIV rumors absolutely wrong and reaffirming his commitment to the PGA Tour, has reportedly signed with the Saudi-backed league. Sources are confirming what once seemed impossible. The man who said, "I'm here to stay," just became the latest needle mover to cross the line. The PGA Tour is in shock. Players are scrambling for answers, in a civil war that everyone thought was stabilizing just exploded into its most stunning chapter yet. Subscribe for the full story of the signing that no one saw coming. Collin Morikawa built his reputation on two things: pristine iron play and unwavering loyalty. When the LIV rumors first swirled in 2024, Morikawa didn't just deny them, he eviscerated them. He took to Twitter with a message that became legendary among PGA Tour loyalists. "To state for the record, once again, you all are absolutely wrong. I've said it since February at Riviera that I'm here to stay on the PGA Tour, and nothing has changed. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got some cereal to pour in my milk." The cereal quote became a rallying cry. It was playful, dismissive, definitive. Morikawa wasn't just staying, he was mocking the very idea that he'd ever leave. He doubled down in interviews. "I hope everything comes together and we're able to all play together at some point, but there's so much back and forth. The emails we get, it's all fluff. There's no point in reading these emails anymore." He positioned himself alongside Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy as the tour's anchors, the players who would never waver. And then came 2026. The year started perfectly for Morikawa. He won the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am in February, his first victory in 848 days. The timing couldn't have been better. He announced immediately afterward that he and his wife were expecting their first child. A win, a baby, a future bright with promise. Everything seemed lined up for a career-defining season. Then the unthinkable happened. The rumors started as whispers in January 2026. A mention here, a speculation there, nothing concrete, nothing worth acknowledging. But behind closed doors, something was happening that would shatter everything. According to multiple sources, Morikawa had been in quiet conversations with LIV representatives for months. The initial contact came through intermediaries, former players who'd already made the jump, agents with connections to both sides, people who understood the delicate dance required to land a player of Morikawa's stature. The first offer arrived in December 2025. The number was staggering. Reports suggest somewhere in the neighborhood of $600 million, with equity in the league and a stake in a potential expansion team. Morikawa's team listened. They didn't say no. By January, the negotiations had intensified. LIV made it clear, Morikawa wasn't just another player they wanted, he was the player. The one who'd mocked their existence with cereal jokes, the one who'd stood beside Tiger and Rory as the face of the resistance. Landing him would be the ultimate validation. Morikawa kept playing, kept winning, kept smiling for cameras. At Pebble Beach, he ended his 28-month drought with a dramatic birdie on the 72nd hole, then announced he and his wife were expecting their first child. The timing was perfect. The narrative was set. But even as he celebrated, the negotiations continued. Sources say Morikawa's team pushed for assurances about the league's long-term stability, about major championship access, about how his legacy would be viewed. LIV answered every question with more money, more equity, more guarantees. By mid-February, a deal was in place. The contracts were drafted, the announcement was scheduled, and on a Tuesday morning that will live in golf infamy, the news broke. Collin Morikawa, the man who said he was here to stay, was gone. Within hours of the news breaking, a screenshot began circulating. It was Morikawa's now infamous post from 2024. "To state for the record once again, you all are absolutely wrong. I've said it since February at Riviera that I'm here to stay on @PGA Tour, and nothing has changed. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got some cereal to pour in my milk. The internet had a field day. The cereal meme exploded. Pouring cereal in milk trended on X. Fans who had once celebrated Morikawa's defiance now mocked his reversal. He literally laughed at the idea of leaving, one fan wrote, and now he's gone for money. Unreal. Another added, the cereal quote didn't age well. Neither did Collin. Morikawa's camp scrambled. Sources close to the player insisted that the contract wasn't just about money, it was about family, about security, about a future that looked different after Pebble Beach. Becoming a father changes things, one source said. Collin started thinking differently about generational wealth, about what he could provide. It's not the same decision at 29 that it would have been at 25. But the damage was done. The quote would follow him forever. Every interview, every press conference, every time he stepped on a LIV course, someone would bring up the cereal tweet. The timing made it worse. Just weeks earlier, McIlroy had made similar comments about LIV not signing anyone who moves the needle. Now McIlroy was gone too. The two players who had been the face of PGA Tour loyalty had defected within days of each other. It's like watching a dam break, one veteran journalist observed. First Rory, then Collin. Who's next? At this point, no one is safe. The PGA Tour's locker room, already reeling from McIlroy's departure, went into full crisis mode. Text chains lit up. Agents fielded calls from panicked players. The unthinkable was suddenly very thinkable. If Rory and Collin could leave, anyone could. Morikawa's statement, when it finally came, was measured and professional. He thanked the PGA Tour, expressed gratitude for his time there, and looked forward to this new chapter. No mention of cereal, no mention of the tweet, just the careful language of a man trying to move forward while the internet replayed his past. But the internet doesn't forget, and neither will the fans who believed him. The news of Collin Morikawa's defection hit the PGA Tour like a nuclear shockwave. Within hours of the announcement, the carefully constructed narrative of stability that tour executives had been selling to players and sponsors for months lay in ruins. Players who had spent years resisting LIV's overtures suddenly found themselves questioning everything. If Morikawa, the man who literally mocked LIV with cereal jokes, could leave, what was stopping anyone else? There's a feeling of panic right now that I haven't seen since the early days of LIV, one veteran player told reporters anonymously. Guys are calling their agents, asking what their own value might be. The floodgates feel like they're opening. The text chains among players exploded with speculation. Who was next? How much were the offers? Was anyone truly safe? The questions came faster than anyone could answer them. Behind closed doors, a different kind of chaos unfolded. Sponsors who had poured millions into the PGA Tour's signature events began asking hard questions. If the stars weren't guaranteed to be on tour, what were they actually paying for? These are existential questions, one marketing executive said. We sign deals based on the expectation that the best players in the world will be competing in these events. If Rory and Collin are gone, if more follow, the product diminishes, and our investment diminishes with it. The timing couldn't have been worse. The tour was in the middle of negotiating new media rights deals, trying to convince broadcast partners that the product was stronger than ever. Now they had to explain why their two biggest young stars had just walked out the door. In Miami, the atmosphere was electric. Greg Norman, the LIV CEO who had been mocked for years as a figurehead leading a failed experiment, finally had his moment of validation. We've been saying from day one that players want options, Norman told reporters. They want to be treated like partners, not employees. Collin understood that. He saw the future, and he chose to be part of building it. The financial terms of Morikawa's deal remained private, but sources confirmed it was structured similarly to Jon Rahm's reported package, with equity stakes and team ownership that made him more than just a player. He wasn't just joining LIV, he was becoming part of its future. With McIlroy and Morikawa gone, attention turned to the remaining players who had been the face of PGA Tour loyalty.
Scottie Scheffler, the world #1, suddenly found himself as the tour's last great hope. Xander Schauffele, Viktor Hovland, Patrick Cantlay all now faced questions they'd never had to answer seriously before. Would they stay? Would they go? And if they went, what would be left? This is the moment the Civil War turns, one analyst observed. Either the tour finds a way to stop the bleeding, or it becomes a slow, painful death.
The dust hasn't settled. It may never settle. Collin Morikawa's defection to LIV Golf isn't just another signing, it's a paradigm shift that changes everything about the sport's future. For Morikawa himself, the decision will be dissected for years. The two-time major champion walked away from the tour he publicly pledged loyalty to, from the fans who believed his serial tweet was genuine, from the legacy he'd built as one of the game's good guys. In exchange, he secured generational wealth. Reports suggest his package rivals Jon Rahm's estimated $600 million deal, with equity stakes that make him a partner, not just a player. But the price is real. His reputation will never be the same. Every interview, every press conference, every time he steps on a LIV course, someone will bring up that tweet. The serial quote will follow him forever. For the PGA Tour, the loss is existential. First Rory, now Collin, the two players who stood tallest as the face of loyalty, are gone. The tour's signature events, already struggling to attract the fields they promised, now face an uncertain future. Sponsors are asking hard questions, media partners are reassessing their investments, and every remaining player is now a potential target. Jay Monahan's carefully worded statement tried to project stability. We respect Collin's decision and wish him well. The PGA Tour remains the preeminent home for professional golf, with unmatched competitive opportunities for our members. But behind the scenes, panic is real. Emergency meetings are happening around the clock. For LIV Golf, this is the validation they've chased since 2022. They've now landed two of the biggest names in the sport within days of each other. The narrative that they couldn't sign players in their prime is dead. The stigma that attached to early defectors has faded. Morikawa's arrival signals something profound. The league is here to stay, and it's now a legitimate home for the game's elite. Greg Norman didn't gloat publicly, but those close to him described the mood as triumphant. This changes everything, one LIV insider said. When Collin was tweeting about cereal, we were the punchline. Now he's wearing our logo. That's not just a signing, that's vindication. For the fans, it's confusion and heartbreak. Years of loyalty, of picking sides, of believing in one version of the sport over another. All of it now feels meaningless. The players they cheered as loyalists are now defectors. The war they thought was winding down just exploded. For the remaining stars, the calculus shifts. Scottie Scheffler, Xander Schauffele, Viktor Hovland, each now faces offers they've never seriously considered. The tour's leverage evaporates when its biggest names keep leaving. The question isn't whether more players will go, it's how many. For Collin Morikawa, a new chapter begins. He'll tee it up in LIV events, collect his millions, and try to build something new. The serial tweet will eventually fade. The wins will stack up, but the decision will always be part of his story. The Civil War isn't over. It's just entered its most dramatic phase yet. For more coverage of this breaking story and its fallout, subscribe and hit the notification bell.